Hello and welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I am absolutely thrilled and excited to have our special guest today, Eddie Turner. And Eddie is not only a friend, he is also an extraordinary human being that has inspired me greatly. In fact, he inspired me to launch this podcast. Eddie is an executive and leadership coach. He is an international best-selling author, host of the Keep Leading podcast, which is an extraordinary podcast that I invite you to check out. He's actually one of Marshall Goldsmith's, one of his 100 coaches, which is a huge and prestigious accomplishment. And what's really cool is that he's been voted Coach of the Week by the International Coach Federation. And that's being chosen out of over 37,000 coaches in over 143 countries. What a huge honor. Welcome, Eddie.
Vered, thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here. And I say that I'm excited to be on any show that I go on, but you're really special. And I just have to tell people right off the bat from the start that you and I met at a special training by the world's #1 female coach, Marsha Reynolds. And I had come off a 2-week show. I had come off a 2-week road trip of being just everywhere, as we do as speakers and coaches. And that was the tail end. That was the last trip before I was going home. And I picked up a bug along the way somewhere. And you unfortunately got stuck sitting next to me. And I'm like sniffling and trying to hold my germs in myself. And you were so patient with me. You gave me tissue and you checked on me. You just took me under your wing like one of your children. And then to top it all off, I was feeling so miserable. Instead of making me wait for an Uber, you offered me a ride home. So you are a saint in my book. I owe you the world. So I am really, really indebted to you forever, but truly happy to be here and see you again.
Thank you, Eddie. And as you know, this is a show about mindset. So I would love to just dive right in and ask you, what does the word mindset mean to you, and how, if at all, has it helped you to get to where you are today, which is a pretty extraordinary place?
Everything that we do, Vered, as we've been trained as coaches, is about our mindset. It's about who we really are. And what we think about, as Brian Tracy says, you think about what you talk about, what you think about. How does he say it? Now I'm forgetting what he says. You are what you think about, essentially, I guess is how it goes, is the idea.
That's the nutshell.
So I try not to, you think what you bring about what you bring about what you think about. That's what he says. You bring about what you think about. So I try not to nurse negative or counterproductive thoughts. So I try to really, to be successful, only think positive, and then also make sure that if I'm going to think positive, I have to nourish myself with positivity.
And how do you do that?
Number one, being around positive people like you. Positive people in my life. I guard my circle very, very strongly. And so I make sure that I'm truly surrounding myself with high quality people who I feel are adding value and not, maybe kind of sucking the life out of you, if you will. But then also making sure that I am one of those people who's adding value to my circle. As one gentleman said so eloquently, you are the sum of your 5 closest associates. He said, do you like how that's adding up?
Wow.
Right. So, and that really is the truth. I mean, when you become who you are around. And when I was growing up, I was very much into scripture. And one of my favorite scriptures were bad associations spoil useful habits. And so I from a very early age, my parents taught me the value and the importance of being around positive people, good people. And so that really breeds who you are. And then also guarding what you're reading, guarding what you're listening to, things that will be motivational, things that will be uplifting and upbuilding rather than negative.
Yeah. So, my perception from, reading your books and, looking at your LinkedIn profile and having met you is that you are very confident, that you don't really have many limiting thoughts. How true is that?
That is not true at all. I think we all have limiting beliefs at some point, limiting thoughts. And, I quickly tried to dispel them, but there are times that, like anyone else, it happens. It, it can creep in. But I think as I do with my clients, I try to help them reflect on past victories. Where in your life did you experience a challenge that you thought was insurmountable, but you conquered it? And there's always a story. We all have them.
Would you
And
be willing
so,
to share one of yours?
that's a nice setup there, Barrett.
You gave it away. Yes.
Well, I walked right into that one. Okay. I would probably say when I decided to go back to school and get a degree as an adult. And at that time in my life, I was working for one of the top companies in the world. Actually, literally, I was working for GE. GE was literally the number one company in the world. I had a very busy job because not only was I working for GE, but I was specifically in the financial services division of GE, which was the growth engine of GE. That's where all the money came from. Well, it was the biggest, yeah. Capital, GE Capital. Aircraft engines was the other big one in power. So a really tough job. And at that time, I still was actually a minister. I was married. I had all these obligations in my life. And to now take that and then to add school to that, because I was an IT professional, I didn't need a degree. And so to then go back to school to try to earn a degree because things shifted. People weren't interested in certifications anymore. People all of a sudden wanted credentials from IT people other than a certification. They wanted degrees. So going back to school seemed like, how am I going to do this? Well, I did accomplish it. However, it made me realize something. That big aha was that, yes, sometimes you will accomplish things, but sometimes to accomplish those big things, there's a trade-off, and it's going to cost you something. So I accomplished my goal, and it took a lot, and there's a lot of stories that go behind the 4 years it took to accomplish that. But on the other side, when it was all over, the unfortunate part for me was it cost me two very important things. And one of them was my 13-year marriage. So to do all of that, it was a Herculean effort, but it caused me to take my eye off the ball in other areas and start to give less attention. And so that created problems. So as Oprah said so eloquently, when talking about you can't have everything, she says, "Oh, you can have everything, just not at the same time."
So what have you learned from, if you don't mind, from that experience? Because that sounds like it was not an easy journey. Yeah, I imagine you're very proud of the accomplishment, and I imagine it has helped you to get to where you are. And what have you learned?
It was a very proud moment, but it was also a very empty moment, right? To kind of cross the stage, if you will, but to have no one there, right? So you say, especially as men, at times we may feel we're doing something for our family. We're going to better position our family for the future. But if we take our eye off the very family that we say that we care about, then are we really taking care of it?
Wow.
And that's what I learned. I learned that I would never make a sacrifice of my family to pursue anything. And I didn't think I was doing it at the time. I thought I was doing the right thing, right? But it was only in hindsight that I began to realize. So the mindset that we must have is that priorities must be in place. Yes, something may be important, but is it at the exclusion of something else? So
Wow. So I'm curious, what advice would you give to someone who wants to pursue something like going back to school or doing something different? And they are busy as you were. What advice would you give them to kind of decide, is this the right decision for me or not?
I would say everyone has to calculate the cost. And when you talk about calculating the costs, really having a crucial conversation with all the stakeholders in your life,
Mm.
and then being open when you may start off and say, hey, listen, this is going to work. Here's what we're going to do together to get through this. It's going to be a difficult period. Be open if that person says, hey, this isn't working anymore. And instead of what I did was like, oh, she's just complaining. I know what you expect. Yes. I mean, there were nights that, I mean, we and me and my friends who I'm still best friends with to this day, we joke about the times where we would literally, because we work downtown the city of Chicago, literally. And at the time I had at the office I was in, it was the only heated indoor parking garage of its size in Chicago.
Mhm.
And of course, being at a company like GE, we had a corporate gym and all this kind of thing. So literally, we would leave work, go across town to classes at Northwestern, and do our studies, and then afterwards do team projects.
Wow.
And then I would drive back to Indiana, which is like an hour away. I lived in Indiana at the time. So I was going to school in Chicago, working in Chicago, Illinois, driving back to Indiana at night. And so it'd be like an hour drive, but coming in the morning, it's not an hour because you got rush hour traffic. So
Wow.
this one particular night, and we had several of these, but one particular night we joke about the more is, I mean, we didn't finish until like 2 a.m. And so at that point, I'm like, well, I'm not driving back home because it's going to be, I won't get any sleep. I have to turn right back around and get back on the road, right? Because I would normally get up and leave at about 5:30. And so I literally go back to my office. I just sleep in my car.
Oh,
I sleep in my car for like 3-4 hours. I get up, I use the corporate gym to shower up and everything and go to work. Right. So, even if you're not doing anything wrong, it can become wrong because you are you're not giving the time and attention to the family. And even though we didn't have any kids, which was the other thing, so I was like, wait, my wife, she's just complaining, right? Well, she wasn't complaining. She was trying to tell me she needed me, and I wasn't understanding that. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm providing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm making everything you need. You don't have to work, and that wasn't it. And so it made me realize that the people in our lives, be it our spouse, if we have children, if we have aging parents, whoever those people are, they need us more than stuff. They need us more than accomplishments or accolades. And that was a very tough lesson for me to learn.
thank you for sharing this. And I can't even imagine how difficult it was for you, not only to do everything, it sounds like everything that you could. I mean, literally working around the clock to provide for the family, to create a better future, and in addition to that, experience resistance from your spouse at the time. And how did you even kind of manage your mood during that time? Because I imagine it must have been a really heavy load.
By nature, I think I tend to be happy most of the time. That was a very difficult time, but I think for me, I go back to my reserves. I go back to uh, my library, my personal library of accomplishments, my personal library of overcoming obstacles, overcoming trials and tribulations, all throughout my life, from being even when I was a little boy. And so, looking at those things, those occasions, those events, and the resources I tapped into, and my faith have always helped me to overcome and still be happy, even if things weren't perfect in my life. And so I think that when we talk about mindset, being happy or being able to smile doesn't mean everything's perfect in your life. It just means that you've made a deliberate decision that in this moment, I'm at peace with chaos. I'm at peace with imperfection. And yes, I wish things were different. Yes, I wish this was this way. I wish this was that was that way. It's not. Am I going to put my happiness on the shelf until it is? No, I can't. So sometimes it's just a matter of holding on to that 10% that's right in life till I get back to everything's 100% right. And then quite frankly, I guess we're never at 100%, but I think that in our minds, we can be 100%. And be in the sense that, even a man once said that it's never too late to have a perfect childhood.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Because even if this was bad, dad wasn't there, this happened, that happened, it's how we tend to think about it. We can always put a new frame around it.
Wow.
And so I think it's just an act of actively reframing situations on a daily basis. Does that mean that someone's living in denial? No. It means that we're doing what we have to do to have a good view so we can have a strong mindset to get through to the next day. And realizing that truly good times don't last forever,
Mm.
and neither do bad times.
Wow.
At some point, the sun will come up again. The clouds do go away.
And Eddie, I sense that there are a lot of people listening to your voice right now, and that maybe are in a very dark place. And hearing that from someone who has been in the dark place and was able to come through on the other side and learn the lessons and keep moving forward and keep helping others, I find that to be very inspirational.
Thank you.
And because it one of the things that I really appreciate about you, Eddie, is your raw honesty. Yeah, you're not up there on a pedestal saying, yeah, everything's perfect, do this, do that. You're sharing the truth of the human experience with us. And that's a very special gift, because there are a lot of people who are in a situation where maybe the relationship is not great, or maybe, whether it's with their children, their spouse, others, and maybe they're really doing their best, but it seems like the cloud just won't leave.
Mhm.
What would you say to those individuals that are hearing your voice and feeling inspired and just don't know how to make that shift? What else can you offer to those people from your experience that might help them?
I've always been very fortunate to have people in my life who I could talk to. Sounding boards. We all need someone we can talk to. We all need sounding boards. We need confidants. And so if we can have a confidant, someone we can trust in, that's 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 God's gift, I say.
Mm.
And for those who have a spiritual life, who are religious, it may be God Himself, right? Being able to pour out their hearts in prayer. So whoever it is, we can't keep it bottled in. We have to talk to someone, somebody. And that's partially, I think, what moved me into coaching. I love helping people. And as you know, being a wonderful coach you are, Barrett, and what I've heard about you and what you've been doing for your clients, we pull them into this sacred space and we hold that container for them. And in that container, people start to pour out their hearts. And so if a person utilizes the free channel of prayer, if they utilize a free channel of a relationship with a human being that they're close to, they can trust, that would be where I would say turn to first. And then if they need something more advanced, coaching is one opportunity to be able to start to see a clearer path out of the present circumstances for which it may look like there is no out.
Mm.
For others, it may be that they need to invest in the power of a therapist, a professionally trained therapist. And as you and I both know, we sometimes a client may come to us and coaching isn't the answer. They need a little bit more advanced help from a clinician.
Yeah.
And so we refer them there. But getting the appropriate help and be able to talk through things, it is, I think, to me, the place to start.
Thank you. And you've had a whole lot of conversations with people who too have accomplished some pretty extraordinary things, various kinds of leaders. And if you were to kind of pull a couple of those stories or lessons, things that really stuck with you personally, that guide you and encourage you and support you on your path, what would those be?
That's another interesting question, Barrett, because there's so many. I'm closing in on just the podcast alone, not just thinking about all the other conversations in general with leaders that from coaching and corporations I've worked in, but just looking at the podcast alone, I'm closing in on episode 100. And so if I were just to pull from the podcast, I'd have a hard time even looking at those 100 and telling you which ones. But if I just pick one, there's one who I talk about a lot, and that's Haben Girma. Haben Girma is the deaf-blind woman who conquered Harvard Law School. That's how she advertises herself. And I love that. And Haben is one of the most courageous, confident, and obviously brilliant women you'll ever meet. And what I love about Haben is Haben was challenging me because I saw Haben because before the interview, I did this research on her, right? And she's like on a surfboard. She's rock climbing. She's doing all these things. And I'm like, I won't do those things. Where's my confidence? Where's my courage? But she's doing those things and she can't see or hear. And I'm like, oh my. So I was in awe of her by the time we had our interview. But then I thought about it for the interview. I'm like, wait a minute. She's deaf and blind. How am I going to do this? So we do the interview, and the first thing she says to me, she says, Eddie Turner, I can't even access your podcast. Wow. And Haben was episode, I think, 14. And she said she couldn't access my podcast because Eddie Turner, who was new to having a podcast, was not transcribing his episodes. The only way she can get to it is through a transcription, because then she can feed it into her machine and access it. Wow. So she said, you need to have a transcript of this episode. And that will be the only way she's going to be able to hear or access her episode, right? So her episode was the very first one I transcribed, went back and had all the rest transcribed. And to this day, there's a transcription of every single episode of the Keep Leading podcast because of Haben Girma. She educated me. I think I understand diversity and inclusion, right? Black man. She says, no, the largest minority group in the world are people with disabilities. And when you don't support people with disabilities, you're ignoring over 1 billion people. So she educated me. And not only do I transcribe every episode of the Keep Leading podcast as a result of that interview with Haben, I also have a heightened sensibility around accessibilities. So I'm like paying attention if there's not a handrail, if there's not a ramp, little things in my daily life now, and where I'm in a decision maker or have a voice on a board, I am always calling out 503C compliance. I'm calling out these different areas that I wouldn't have thought about before. Yeah, I wasn't against these things. I was just ignorant. I didn't know. And so Haben helped me have awareness. So she's one person I would point you to of the 99 others.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited to hear that episode. And I'm curious, there's something about her that kind of moved you to really change the way that you see the world, and behave in the world and advocate for people with disabilities. What do you think it was really about her? How was she able to accomplish that?
For me, it's just, if you tell me something, you bring it to my attention, I'm on it. But with her, I think she has just been, she's an attorney now. And so she is, she got her degree from Harvard Law School. She actually changed Harvard. Harvard didn't even have basic menus to the cafeteria for her to be able to select food from. Harvard didn't so she changed. She literally, that's why she said she conquered Harvard Law School. It wasn't just that she got in and earned the degree, but she forced Harvard to say, hey, listen, you need to pay attention to these little things that you're not paying attention to. And so I had heard her story at a high level, which is why I invited her on the show. But then in researching her and to do the interview, and then by being interviewed, she flipped the script on me. Right now, I haven't gone surfing and somebody else thinks that she was like, Eddie, you need to get your life together. I haven't done any of that stuff. But just her example and her presence. I mean, she's amazing. And so I don't think anybody could talk to her and not leave moved to do something different within your power.
And, it's interesting because when you shared her story, what came up for me was the word resilience.
Mhm.
Resilience. I mean, she must have gone through so much in her life. And it was that same word that came up for me when you shared your story, resilience. What do you think, if we look through the lens of being resilient, what do you think it is that has helped you to build your resilience, to build your courage, to speak out as well, right? Whether it's for people with disabilities or for other things that you believe in.
I often, when talking about resilience, and I've interviewed probably 3 or 4 people on this topic now, I use the illustration of a rubber band. And every person who speaks about resilience also uses it as well, right? So it's not just, that you snap back, but a rubber band snaps back harder when you pop it. So coming back, and again, going back to what I said earlier, I realized from a young age that nothing lasts forever. Even the great times that we really don't want to end, and certainly not the bad things. Now, sometimes that bad situation may seem like it's lasting for a long, long, long time, be it someone who has a chronic illness, or in the case of Haben, an illness that will never go away. But she's the perfect example of what I was talking about. Still choosing. I mean, when you see her videos on the surfboard, when you see her climbing, or if you just listen to us, this is not a woman who's living in sorrow and mourning. So despite not ever being able to see or to read, right, she's living her best life. And so that's why I just believe it's incumbent upon all of us, no matter, we all have a problem. We all have something we're going through. We all have been let down, but we have to bounce back and bounce back stronger. I never thought I'd be divorced, but 13 years of what was a wonderful marriage, I thought, came to an end. And I was single for, I don't know, 6 years. And then in 7/7/17, I was blessed to get married again. I've bounced back stronger. My wife now seems like she's the one I should have had the first time. I don't know. I needed her 20 years ago. She's just amazing. And so, wow, what a blessing. Didn't think I'd ever, find love again. Sometimes people aren't able to find it even once. And I had it happen twice. So what a blessing. And so I'm excited about that. Now, my wife now thinks I'm perfect, but that's because I had 13 years of training. There's a lot of stuff that I get right this time. This time around, I know what to do.
She's a lucky woman.
Yes, I learned a lot. I learned my lessons. And so... So doing things the right way. So resilience is about really the belief of what is true. It's not just some mythical saying, right? Someone said tough times don't last, but tough people do. And that's what it's about. Being resilient, things will get better. But the question is, when they get better, will you be better?
That's right.
We can let circumstances make us a bitter person or a better person. If we allow them to make us bitter, we're no good for that next person when they come along. That next event that comes along. We can't show up as the person we need to be because we're still living in the past, still complaining about what she did to me, what he did to me, or what this school did and what they did, whatever happened. Being resilient is about saying, hey, it happened, dust ourselves off and keep going. Be ready when the next opportunity comes. Learn from whatever took place, but I'm going to come back and I'm coming back stronger. One of my favorite songs used to be by Michael Bolton, When I'm Back on My Feet Again. Now, most people know Michael Bolton for his ballads, his love ballads, how he bellows out. But that song, When I'm Back on My Feet Again, was a song that I would listen to because I said, yes, when I'm back on my feet again, right? And that song just, it was one of those things that meant a lot to me. So, yes, we all get knocked down, but can we get back up? Going back to scripture again, I'll quote Proverbs. The wise man Solomon said, the righteous man gets knocked down 7 times and he still gets up.
Mm.
So it's not that we don't fall. We make mistakes, but do we lay there or do we get up and keep getting up?
Wow. Thank you for that reminder. Yeah, I think we all need that reminder from time to time. And I felt kind of a wave of emotion when you brought up that song, because if you look at just those words, right? When I get up again, it
Mhm.
presupposes I will get up again. There is hope.
Exactly.
And I mean, I just feel it, throughout my body. And for someone who's under that dark cloud, who may have experienced things that they did not welcome, they did their best, and things didn't work out the way they wanted, to hold on to that hope that things will get better, that they will get up again, and they will be stronger because they have received some lessons, as you have, right, to create an even better marriage, even more presence in your life,
Mhm.
and there is an undertone of kindness and compassion for yourself that I hear as well, right, in that learning, because you've experienced things, and yet there's a self-love. I don't know how to describe it. What do you see, if anything, there?
That's probably true. You do have to have a love of self, warts and all. Warts and all. Like I am not at my ideal weight right now. I am at my heaviest weight. I am really self conscious about my weight right now. But I am what I am. I wish I was back in my younger weight. I wish I was back at just the weight I moved to Houston in. I'm not there. And COVID just pushed me over the rails, right? So, wow. But so be it a persistent weight challenge, and I was always a skinny kid growing up. I never had weight issues. So be it a weight issue, be it acne, be it, I don't have the hair I used to have either. That's the other thing. I used to have a nice little hairstyle, but you know, these are things that happen. Will we love ourselves despite, you know, those things that take place? In fact, those things are inevitable to take place. Right? And are we trying to be the person we need to be at the end of every day is probably um, the better question. So in spite of the failure, in spite of things that went wrong, what did I learn from it? So it's one thing to keep making the same mistake over and over, right? Now, sometimes we will. And it's only after the fourth time we say, oh, well, I should probably stop doing this. This just isn't working, right? So some of us, we may make the same mistake over and over again. But at some point, can we analyze things, learn from it, and keep going? And be at peace with ourselves and say, it's okay. Now, not to the point that we excuse or condone or rationalize away bad behavior. If we're having an impact on someone else, our wife, our spouse, a significant other, our partner, the people we work with, whatever it may be, if we're having bad social impact on other people, now that's a problem we need to take quick steps and actions on. But if we're just talking about how we're treating ourselves and how we're dealing with ourselves, that's what I'm saying. We have to be patient with ourselves sometimes and be okay with being imperfect.
Yeah, that's a big one for a lot of people. And Eddie, I am so grateful for all the many lessons that you've shared with us today, because as I said, you're sharing the truth of what was and the truth of what is. And it's very rare to get to see the truth and hear the truth. And I find it very inspiring, because not only are you willing to be vulnerable, yeah, with us,
Mhm.
and you're sharing what you have learned throughout the journey, with the hope that it will serve others. And I can certainly say for myself that it has served me. Yeah.
Thank you
So
very much.
I thank you. I thank you from my heart. and on behalf of everyone listening today, for just being so kind and generous with us today.
Thank you for having me, Barrett.
And how can people learn more about you, order your book? I ordered it on Amazon. Tell us a little bit about that, because I sense that people are curious to learn more insights, tips, tools from the wealth of experience that you've had.
You can learn more about me at askeddieturner.com. Ask EDDIE, because sometimes people spell it the other way. EDDIETURNER.com. Now, there you'll get access to all my social media. You can click on that and you can follow me, connect with me. I welcome that. My book is listed there. That book was written 2 years ago to emerging leaders. So I sat down and thought about what are some things I wish I knew earlier in my career? What are some things I wish I knew kind of along the way? And made them the length of a tweet. At the time, Twitter's restriction was 140. They've since increased to 280 by the time I was finishing the book. So some of them are about 280 characters. But it's written as a journal style. So I love when people send me pictures of what they've done and what their favorite messages are, which ones. Some people tell me they use one every day. And that really was the goal. And at the end of the book, what's interesting is it became my keynote, which is I interviewed people to find out what they thought is an emerging leader. Came up with 8 categories. That really is what my speech is based on. The fact that I'm asking people to expand their view of what they think an emerging leader is, and the fact that while we typically look at it as the people who I originally wrote the book for, early career people, those up and coming leaders, all of us need to be emerging as a leader, not being complacent. And if nothing has taught us this, COVID has. We cannot lead the way we in February 2020 we were leading then. We can't lead that way today. And certainly moving into 2021 it requires new leadership skills. It requires new leadership competencies. So can we emerge all the new as a leader? And that's the expansion of that.
Well, I've looked at all 140 of them, and there have been tips and tools that I've picked up, whether it's from quotes or from different insights, just a different way to look at things. So I really encourage people to pick that up. Would you be willing to give us the name of the book?
Well, that is so kind of you. Thank you, Barrett. Actually, it's right behind me. So the hardcover is 140 simple messages to guide emerging leaders. This is available anywhere books are sold, almost anywhere, I believe, because I've seen it on Target and places I didn't know it was going to be at. Primarily, of course, it is on Amazon. And 2 years later, it's still selling. My other book didn't make it out. My other book, I'm kicking myself because it would have really helped right now during the pandemic. Because the idea was it was about how to virtually set up meetings, how to use tools and technology. It was how to structure these sessions. And I was explaining things that I've done with CEOs since 2009 of making this work. But I'm going to put it out at some point. But for now, this is all I got.
That's awesome. And there's
here's
a
what I'll
lot
do.
more that you've got. And here it's just, again, another illustration of everything that we've talked about, right? About keep moving forward and right. And everything happens for a reason. And when it does come out, it's going to be even bigger and better and even more impactful for whoever picks it up. Yeah.
I certainly hope so. And if what we'll do, Barrett, is if someone contacts you and they tell you that they listen to this podcast and they will only know about this because they listened to the entire episode, I will send them or send you the PDF of the book. I have a sample chapter, I believe, and that we can send them the sample of that.
Oh, that's very generous. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. And again, from my heart to yours, I am really grateful for our friendship. You inspire me. Like I said, this podcast is in large part thanks to you, because I thought I had to have it all perfect before I went out and did this. You know, I have all the systems and the tools, and you said, Barrett, just do it. Just get started. Just do it. And I followed your advice, and I did. I still don't have all the systems and everything. And I'm so grateful for your advice, because, you know, we got to do what we did today and people got to hear you. And that's very meaningful to me, and I know from our conversations to you as well. So thank you for continuously inspiring me. I can't wait to hear more about your growth. I know you're involved with Marsha Reynolds' breakthrough program. You're the lead
Yes.
facilitator there, which is another amazing honor. And I'm excited to keep seeing you shine and grow.
Well, thank you, Vera. You are an amazing woman, and again, I owe you the world. You're a saint. You are truly a saint, and so I will never forget you. And anytime Vera asks me anything, the answer is yes. I am in your debt. So thank you for being the amazing woman you are, and thank you for this podcast that you're doing. I'm so proud of you and what you're doing and what you're accomplishing, and the work that you're doing as a podcaster, getting your voice out there, your message, and the work that you're doing as a coach, because you are truly impacting the lives of many. So keep
Thank you.
leading.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie.